So Clint, for you, you've been tracking LSU for a while. You've seen them. You saw the game 2 weeks ago, the Arkansas game that was tighter than I think a lot of people anticipated. They ended
Yeah.
up winning a close one. What do you think about where they sit now? And do you think the rankings really matter now in terms of the top four when we're talking even about that league?
Ooh, LSU. I think LSU is more the team that got beat by Florida State and got the doors blown off of them by Tennessee than they are the number 5 team in America.
Yeah.
They're a much better football team than I gave them credit for. That's for damn sure coming out of the gate. But when I watched them against Arkansas, Arkansas's got one of the worst defenses that I've seen in college football in several years, if we're being honest. I mean, especially when LSU caught them. They had lost a couple of key players, and that was not a good defense. And I think Arkansas held them to, I think it was 13 points in that ball game. And if KJ Jefferson would have been there, LSU would have took they wouldn't have lost that game. They'd have took a beating in that particular game. So I think LSU is a much better football team than I gave them credit for, but they're closer to the team that lost to Florida State and lost convincingly to Tennessee than they are the number 5 team in the country. I think they're out over their skis at this point in time, and Georgia's got to be chomping at the bit to get to that particular game, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like I felt coming out of the rankings tonight, like Ole Miss was a team given a lot of credit, where they sat, and then you kind of look at the games that they've been in and the opponents they've had, and I was like, the LSU thing, it just kind of didn't seem like right. And I understand why they're there because of the quality win that they've had. But I am curious to see how it shakes out when they play, because that's going to be the end of the day. Like, they're not going to move from where they sit at 5, and the decision is going to be made for them whether they win or lose on the future of that. To that point, where do you think? I'll go to you, Trevor, next. Like, where do you think when you look at this thing gives you the biggest pause? Like when you saw the rankings come out, where did it make you say, "What?" Like that kind of surprised me tonight.
Yeah, no, it was just that it was LSU over USC, and at first my thought was initially, okay, I get what they did there because LSU is going to play Georgia in the SEC title game. If they happen to win over Georgia, well, now they're already in that 5th spot. Ohio State or Michigan's going to lose. Boom, they just move right into the top 4. But then you look at USC right behind them. If USC does what they're supposed to do against Notre Dame and then wins the Pac-12 title game, I personally believe USC has to jump LSU, right? Even if LSU wins the SEC championship, their quality of wins over that 3-game stretch, I think, is you can make the argument it's over Georgia. I don't know. That was my pause. I kept trying to twist it every which way, and I didn't understand why they put LSU in front of USC, because I think USC has to get in if they do what they're supposed to do and win these next couple games, including the Pac-12 championship game. So curious what you guys think about that as well. I know, Clint, you gave some thoughts. Hack, what are yours?
Yeah. I agree. I mean, I think it's just the fact of the matter that if LSU does beat Georgia, they're the SEC champion, and the SEC champion has never missed a college football playoff. So
does that push Georgia out is my question.
And that's, again, there's historically speaking, there's been 2 SEC teams, right? So I don't think it pushes Georgia out. I think Georgia's body of work also warrants a spot just for what it is. And to your point, though, like a USC team, and Yogi, you made this point last 2 weeks ago, last week, their last 4-game stretch here, and they're halfway through it, has been hellacious. And if they can get through that in a really deep Pac-12 conference, a conference championship, a 1-loss team, they got to be in contention. I just find it really hard that even for what it is, a 2-loss Bama, a 2-loss LSU is above a Clemson that has a chance to win the ACC. Again, we've shared our thoughts about Clemson, but I mean, how much does a conference championship mean when you're talking about this stuff as well? I think that's kind of the biggest hurdle that you're speaking about. And again, we're talking about 1-loss teams and teams that are going to be tight. Like the Big Ten has handcuffed themselves too, because I do believe that this Michigan team, top to bottom, and Ohio State team are both top 4 or 5 football teams in the country. They've shown that. And if this one's a barn burner, I think you have a legitimate argument depending on what else happens, right? I think there's still some craziness that needs to happen outside of the Big Ten conference. But I think there's an argument that you can make that both of those teams could represent in the college football playoff, right? The beauty of this is that there's some head-to-heads here in this top 7 that we're going to get to see, and it's going to iron things out. And I think it's going to clear the path for fans and the committee when it comes down to selecting the best 4 teams to represent college football in the college football playoff.
Yeah, it's interesting, guys, because I mean, look, I hate to play this whole speculation game, but Georgia's going to blow the doors off LSU, and so I think I think the question ultimately comes down. This is going to be so fascinating because you're going to have the loser of the Michigan Ohio State, and I'm not worried about the record. I'm just talking about the team that's going to be in the bunch. You're going to have the loser of the Michigan Ohio State game, USC, Alabama, and Clemson. And you can say USC will be bumped up because one of those teams is going to lose, and then LSU will lose. So, but you're going that 4th team in. I mean, we've taken all kind of shots at it over the last month, but that 4th team in, they're going to really have to look at some, like they're going to look at Clemson's tape and say, Clemson's their record. I don't know if they only have 1 loss, but Clemson just doesn't. They're not that squad. They're going to have to make a tough decision on a team that typically makes their job really easy.